The Kansas sky had been lying for weeks. Every morning, Dale Merritt stepped off the creaking wooden porch of his farmhouse and looked west, reading the horizon the way his father had taught him, searching for the bruised purple underbelly of clouds that meant rain was coming. Every morning, the sky answered back with the same indifferent blue, pale, and stretched thin like old cotton, offering nothing but heat and silence. It was the third consecutive dry year on the Merritt land. Dale stood at the edge of his east field, boots sinking slightly into soil that should have been moist and dark but instead crumbled at his touch like dry bread. He crouched down, picked up a handful of dirt, and let it fall through his fingers. The grains scattered in the hot August wind before they even hit the ground. He watched them go without expression, the deep lines carved into his face holding decades of weather, worry, and stubbornness in equal measure. He was 54 years old. His grandfather, Edwin Merritt, had broken this land in 1931, working it through the Dust Bowl with a determination that bordered on madness. His father, Roy Merritt, had nearly lost it twice, once to a bank in 1974, once to a hailstorm in 1989 that took out 60% of the crop in 40 minutes. But the land was still Merritt land. Dale intended to keep it that way. He walked back toward the barn, his stride slow and deliberate, the stride of a man carrying something heavy that no one else could see. Inside the barn, in the back left corner where the temperature stayed coolest, sat 7 burlap bags of certified winter wheat seed, Everest variety, high yield, drought tolerant, the best money could buy. Except Dale hadn't bought them. He'd traded for them the previous spring, giving up his last working tractor to a seed supplier in Dodge City in exchange for enough seed to plant 40 acres. It was a desperate trade, the kind that made sense only when desperation had already won the argument. 7 bags, 40 acres, that was what stood between the Merritt farm and complete financial collapse. He sat down on a hay bale near the bags, removed his cap, and ran a hand through hair that had gone entirely gray sometime in the last 2 years without him noticing. The barn smelled of old wood, motor oil, and dry straw. A barn swallow darted through the open door and disappeared into the rafters. Dale watched it go. "You're doing that thing again," said a voice from the doorway. His wife, Sandra Merritt, stood with her arms crossed, a dish towel thrown over one shoulder. She was 51, lean and sharp-featured, with dark eyes that missed very little. They had been married 28 years, and in that time she had learned to read Dale's silences the way he read the sky, not always correctly, but with the confidence of long practice. "What thing?" Dale said, not looking up. "Sitting in here staring at those bags like they might tell you something. Maybe they will." Sandra walked in and sat beside him on the hay bale. The barn was warm. Outside, a meadowlark called twice and went quiet. "Kevin called," she said. Dale said nothing. "He wants to know if we're going to make payroll for Martinez this month." Roberto Martinez was their only full-time farmhand, a quiet, reliable man of 40 who had worked the Merritt land for 11 years. He had a wife and 2 daughters in the small town of Greensburg, 20 miles south. He had never missed a day of work that wasn't accounted for. "We'll make it," Dale said. "Dale." "We'll make it, Sandra." She looked at him for a long moment, then looked at the bags of seed. "What's the plan? Really? I need to know the real plan, not the one you tell me so I don't worry." Dale put his cap back on. "We plant in October. If the fall moisture comes in, and the extended forecast says there's a 60% chance of above-average precipitation starting in September, we'll have a stand by November. We carry through winter, harvest in June. We use the advance from the co-op to cover operating costs until then. The co-op advance is already spoken for. The property tax payment, the equipment loan, I know what it's spoken for. So what covers operating costs?" The silence stretched between them, filling the barn. "I'll figure it out," Dale said. Sandra stood up, smoothed her jeans, and picked up the dish towel from her shoulder. She looked at him with an expression that wasn't quite anger and wasn't quite resignation. something in between that had no clean name. You know, she said quietly, your father used to say the same thing. She walked back toward the house. Dale watched her go, then looked back at the 7 bags of seed. Their son, Kevin Merritt, arrived that evening in a dust-covered Ford pickup, pulling into the gravel driveway just as the sun was dropping behind the tree line to the west, painting the sky in shades of amber and rust. He was 26, broad-shouldered, like his father, but with his mother's dark eyes and a restless energy that had always made farm life feel too small for him. Kevin had spent 2 years studying agricultural business at Kansas State before dropping out to come home when the drought hit hard in 2023. He'd stayed because duty demanded it, but Dale had never been entirely sure his son had made peace with that decision. They ate dinner with minimal conversation. Sandra's pot roast, soft rolls, green beans from the garden. The kitchen fan turned slowly overhead. The evening news played low on the television in the adjoining room. A meteorologist in Wichita was talking about a high-pressure system stalled over the southern plains. Martinez asked me today if we were going to plant the east field or just the south 40, Kevin said, cutting a piece of meat without looking up. Both, Dale said. Kevin looked up then. We only have enough seed for one field, Dad. We've been over this. I'm aware of what we have. So which is it? I said both. Kevin set his fork down carefully. Are you planning on buying more seed? Because I checked the account balance this morning, and I didn't ask you to check the account balance. Someone has to. The temperature in the kitchen rose by several degrees without anyone touching the thermostat. Sandra stood and took her plate to the sink, keeping her back to both of them. I have a plan, Dale said. Dad, I need you to talk to me like a business partner, not like I'm 12 years old asking why I can't stay up late. What is the plan? Dale looked at his son across the table. In the evening light, he could see Edwin Merritt's jaw in Kevin's face, Roy Merritt's shoulders. 3 generations of stubbornness sitting at the same kitchen table. I'm working on it, Dale said. Kevin picked his fork back up, chewed, swallowed. I've been offered a job, he said, his voice carefully neutral. Cargill, regional sales coordinator, based in Wichita. It pays $62,000 a year plus benefits. The fork in Dale's hand stopped moving. I haven't accepted it, Kevin continued. I told them I needed time. But I need to know if there's something here worth staying for. And I don't mean worth it emotionally. I mean financially. I need to know if this farm has a future. Dale set his own fork down. He looked at the table for a long moment, at the worn wood surface his mother had scrubbed 10,000 times, at the ring stain from a coffee cup that had been there since 1987. This land has been in our family for 95 years, Dale said. I know that. Your great-grandfather broke it with a mule and a hand plow. I know, Dad. Then you know I'm not going to stand here and tell you to walk away from it. I'm not walking away. I'm asking if staying makes any kind of sense. Silence. Give me 30 days, Dale said finally. Kevin studied his father's face for a long time. Then he nodded once, picked up his fork, and went back to eating. The next morning, Dale drove 12 miles north on Highway 183 to the town of Lewis, Kansas, population 421, dropping every census, and stopped at the hardware and feed store owned by Gus Palmetto, who had been his father's friend and was now something between a friend and a creditor. Gus was 67, heavy-set, with a white mustache and the unhurried manner of a man who had decided long ago that most emergencies weren't. Dale, Gus said from behind the counter, not looking up from an invoice he was marking. Gus, what do you need? Conversation, mostly. Gus looked up. That's the most expensive thing I sell. He set the invoice down. Coffee's on. They sat in the back of the store, in the small office that smelled of fertilizer and old paper. And Dale told Gus the honest version of the situation, the version he hadn't fully told Sandra, the version that kept him awake at 3 in the morning staring at the ceiling. The co-op advance was overextended. The equipment loan had a balloon payment due in November that he couldn't cover. The 7 bags of seed weren't enough to plant both fields, and planting only one field wouldn't generate enough harvest revenue to service the debt. He needed either more seed or a financial restructuring, and he didn't see a clear path to either. Gus listened without interrupting, which was one of the things Dale had always respected about him. "You talked to the FSA?" Gus asked. The Farm Service Agency had emergency loan programs for drought-affected operations. "I'm already at the limit of what they'll extend without a concrete repayment plan, and my last 2 years of yield data doesn't exactly inspire confidence. There's a new emergency drought relief appropriation, federal, just came through last month. I heard Jim Aldridge over in Pratt County got approved for a bridge loan. I heard the same thing. I filled out the application in June, still waiting." Gus nodded slowly, turning his coffee mug in both hands. "What about Conrad?" Dale's expression didn't change, but something behind his eyes shifted almost imperceptibly. "What about him? He had a good year, relatively speaking. I know he bought that center pivot system last spring, bank financed, sure, but it worked. His west section pulled decent yields even in the drought. He might have surplus seed." Conrad Ashby farmed the section directly north of Dale's land. They had grown up 3 miles apart, attended the same school in Greensburg, competed for the same FFA awards, and courted the same girl, Sandra, in 1993. Conrad had lost that particular competition, and Dale had always suspected that Conrad had never entirely forgiven him for it. Over the following decades, their relationship had calcified into something that wasn't quite hatred, but occupied the same general territory. Boundary disputes, water rights arguments. The time in 2011 when Conrad's equipment had crossed onto Meritland during harvest, and Dale had nearly called the sheriff. There was a long history written in small grievances and cold nods at the grain elevator. "I'm not going to Conrad Ashby for anything," Dale said. Gus looked at him over his coffee mug. "Pride is expensive out here, Dale. Always has been. It's not pride. Then what is it?" Dale looked out the small window at the back of the office, at the flat Kansas landscape stretching north, brown and dry, and enormous under the September sky. "It's history," he said. He drove home along the county road, past fields that should have been green with winter wheat establishing itself but were instead bare and waiting. He passed the turnoff to the Ashby property to 680 acres, slightly larger than his own, with the new center pivot system visible from the road, its long mechanical arms standing motionless in the afternoon heat. He didn't slow down. But that night, lying awake at 2 a.m. with the ceiling fan turning above him, and Sandra breathing slowly beside him, Dale did the arithmetic one more time. He had done it so many times over the past months that the numbers had lost their meaning, becoming just symbols in a pattern he already knew the outcome of. He needed seed for the east field. Without it, he couldn't plant a full operation. Without a full planting, the harvest revenue projections fell below the threshold required to service the November balloon payment. Below that threshold, the bank would begin foreclosure proceedings by February at the latest. The FSA application was still pending. Gus had no seed to spare. The nearest commercial supplier was in Dodge City, and the cost of purchasing seed outright, without the trade value of equipment he no longer had, was simply beyond what the account balance could absorb. There was one other option. He lay in the dark and thought about it for a long time. 2 days later, on a Tuesday morning that smelled of dust and coming autumn, Dale Merritt drove north on the county road and turned up the long gravel driveway that led to the Ashby farmhouse. It was a bigger house than his. 2 stories, vinyl siding replaced within the last decade, a 2-car garage with the doors closed. A border collie came off the porch and circled his truck twice as he parked. Conrad Ashby came out the front door before Dale had fully stepped out of the truck. He was 56, 2 years older than Dale. Still lean and straight-backed with iron gray hair, cropped close and pale, blue eyes that were sharp in a way that always made Dale feel like he was being appraised. They looked at each other across the 10 feet of gravel between them. "Dale," Conrad said. "Conrad." Neither of them moved for a moment. The border collie sat down between them and looked from one man to the other. "You'd better come in," Conrad said. They sat at Conrad's kitchen table, newer than Dale's, a composite surface with no coffee ring stains, and Conrad's wife, Lynette Ashby, brought coffee without being asked and then made herself absent with the practiced discretion of a woman who understood when men needed space to navigate something difficult. Dale stated his situation plainly. He was not a man who knew how to package things softly, and he didn't try. He needed seed. He knew Conrad had run a better operation this year. He was asking to purchase seed at fair market value, payment deferred to post-harvest with a written agreement. Conrad listened with his hands wrapped around his coffee mug, his face giving nothing away. When Dale finished, Conrad was quiet for a long moment. He looked down at the table. He looked out the window at his own fields, brown and vast in the morning light. "How much?" Conrad asked. "Enough for 40 acres. About 6 bags if you have Everest or equivalent." Conrad nodded slowly. "I have Everest. Bought extra this year as insurance." "I know," Gus told me. A thin, dry smile crossed Conrad's face. "Small county, always has been." Another silence. The refrigerator hummed. Outside, the border collie barked once at something in the distance. "I'll give them to you," Conrad said. Dale looked up. "I said I'd pay. Post-harvest, with interest if you want. I said I'll give them to you." Conrad's voice was even, unhurried. "No payment, Conrad." "My daughter is in treatment at Wesley Medical in Wichita." Conrad said it the way people say things they've had to say many times, the words worn smooth by repetition. "Leukemia. Diagnosed in July. I'm not saying that for sympathy. I'm saying it because you're about to ask me why, and that's the why. She's 23 years old, and I've spent the last 8 weeks sitting in a hospital waiting room thinking about what actually matters and what doesn't." Dale sat very still. "Take the seed," Conrad said. "Plant your field. Pay me back if the harvest is good. If it isn't, forget it. We've wasted enough years on all of this." He gestured vaguely, meaning the history between them. The boundary disputes, the cold nods, the competition that had started over a girl and hardened into something neither of them had consciously chosen. Dale looked at the man across the table, the rival, the neighbor, the ghost of an old story, and felt something shift in his chest, like a stone turning over in a riverbed. "I'm sorry about your daughter," Dale said. "Thank you. What's her name?" "Claire." A softness passed across Conrad's face, there and gone. "She's a hell of a kid." Dale nodded. He picked up his coffee mug and drank. Outside, the Kansas sky was beginning to cloud over for the first time in weeks. The horizon to the northwest showing the faint bruised purple that Dale had been looking for every morning. He loaded 6 bags of Conrad Ashby's seed into his truck that afternoon. He drove home without the radio on, watching the clouds build. The rain came on a Thursday. Not the dramatic, thunderous deliverance that Dale had imagined during the long, dry months, but a steady, quiet, serious rain that began at midnight and continued through the following day without any particular flare. Just water falling on dry ground, the way water was supposed to. Dale stood on the porch at 6 a.m. and listened to it hit the tin roof of the barn and felt something unclench in his chest. That had been tight for so long he'd forgotten it was tight. Sandra stood beside him with her coffee, watching the rain come down in gray curtains across the fields. She didn't say anything, but she reached over and took his hand, and he let her. "Good timing," she said eventually. "Yeah. Did you tell Kevin about the seed?" "Not yet." She looked at him. "You're going to have to tell him where it came from." "I know. He's not going to like it." "I know that too." Kevin's reaction, delivered over the phone that evening, was approximately what Dale had anticipated. A silence, then a short exhale. then a series of careful questions that Dale recognized as his son's way of managing a response he knew wouldn't be productive to simply speak aloud. "You went to Ashby," Kevin said. "I did. After everything, yes." Another silence. Then, "Did you at least get a written agreement?" "He gave them to me outright. No agreement." The silence this time was longer. "Dad, you accepted charity from Conrad Ashby. I accepted help from a neighbor who was in a position to give it. That's what people do out here. He's not just a neighbor. He's Kevin." Dale's voice was quiet but final. "His daughter has leukemia. She's 23 years old. Whatever Conrad and I have had between us, it's done. It was already done before I drove up there. I just finally acted like it." Kevin was quiet for a long time. Dale could hear road noise in the background. His son was driving somewhere in the dark, probably taking the long way home the way he did when he needed to think. "The offer from Cargill is still open," Kevin said finally. "I told them I'd give them an answer in 30 days. I remember. The clock is running, Dad, I know." After he hung up, Dale went out to the barn and stood for a while in the smell of wet earth coming through the open door. Roberto Martinez had spent the day prepping the east field for planting, disking the soil, checking the drainage channels, testing the moisture levels. He'd left a handwritten note on the workbench, "Soil at 6 inches, reading good. Ready when you are." Dale read the note twice, folded it, and put it in his shirt pocket. Planting began on October 3rd. Dale, Kevin, and Roberto worked the east field first, then turned to the South 40, using the borrowed planter that Gus Palmetto had arranged through a shared equipment cooperative in the county. The work was physical and meditative, the slow back and forth of the tractor across the field, the seed dropping into the prepared soil, the smell of turned earth and diesel and approaching winter. For those 4 days, Kevin was present in a way he hadn't been in months, focused, engaged, moving with the efficient energy of someone who knew the work well and took satisfaction in doing it right. Dale watched his son from the corner of his eye and said nothing, but stored the observation somewhere careful. On the evening of the 4th day, as they were cleaning equipment in the fading light, Roberto said, "Mr. Merritt, you hear about the Dawson place?" The Dawson place was a 480-acre farm 12 miles southeast, owned by Paul Dawson, 71, whose family had farmed it since the 1940s. Paul had been in declining health for 2 years, and there had been quiet talk in the county about what would happen to the land. "What about it?" Dale said. "He had a meeting with a real estate broker last week, commercial one from Wichita. Word is he's selling." Dale set down the wrench he was holding. "To who?" Roberto shrugged. "Don't know for sure, but I heard it's not a farmer." The three of them stood in the cooling evening air, not speaking, the implications settling between them like sediment. Land in Ford County that left agricultural use rarely came back. In the past decade, 2 farms within 20 miles had been sold to solar development companies. Their fields covered with panel arrays that generated clean energy and no food. It was legal, it was profitable for the sellers, and it was a small, quiet catastrophe for the agricultural character of the region. "Where'd you hear this?" Kevin asked Roberto. "Gus Palmetto's?" Kevin looked at his father. Dale looked at the darkening field where the first winter wheat seeds were now settled into the Kansas soil, beginning the slow, invisible process of becoming something. "It's his land," Dale said. "His decision. It affects all of us," Kevin said. "I know it does." Kevin picked up a rag and wiped his hands slowly. "Cargill does land acquisition consulting on the side, you know. Regional agricultural development. If there was a farmer buyer lined up instead, Kevin. I'm just saying one thing at a time," Dale said. "Let's get through planting first." In the second week of October, Dale drove to Wichita. He went alone without telling Sandra the specific reason, saying only that he had business at the FSA regional office. This was true, but incomplete. He also had an appointment at Wesley Medical Center. He found the oncology waiting room on the 4th floor, beige walls, low chairs, a television mounted high in the corner showing a cable news channel with the sound off. There were 7 other people in the room, each of them carrying the particular stillness of people waiting for news that matters too much. He had called Conrad 2 days before and asked if he could visit. Conrad had been quiet for a moment, then said yes. Conrad was in the waiting room when Dale arrived, sitting with a paper cup of coffee, wearing the same kind of clothes he wore on the farm: clean jeans, work boots, a button shirt. He looked like he'd aged 5 years since the morning Dale had sat at his kitchen table. They shook hands. "How is she?" Dale asked. "Second round of chemo starts tomorrow. Doctor says her response to the first round was," they used the word encouraging. "I've learned to be careful about encouraging." They sat down together in the low chairs, 2 farmers in a hospital waiting room. The Kansas flatlands 5 hours away in every direction that mattered. "Lynette here?" Dale asked. "She went down to the cafeteria. She'll be back." Conrad looked at the television, at the muted news anchor moving his mouth soundlessly. "You didn't have to come, I know, Dale." Conrad turned to look at him. The pale blue eyes were tired in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. "Why did you come?" Dale thought about it for a moment. "Because it was the right thing to do," he said. "And I've been doing the wrong thing, or nothing, for about 20 years when it came to you and me. Figured I'd try something different." Conrad looked at him for a long time. Then he nodded once and looked back at the television. They sat together for 2 hours. Lynette Ashby came back from the cafeteria, found Dale there, and her face did something complicated: surprise. Then something that might have been relief, the relief of a woman who had watched her husband carry something alone for too long. Dale met Claire Ashby for 20 minutes in the afternoon, in a hospital room that smelled of antiseptic and the flowers 2 people had brought. She was slight and pale from the treatment, with her father's sharp eyes and a directness that reminded Dale, unexpectedly and achingly, of Sandra at 23. "Dad talks about your farm," Claire said. "He says it's the best soil in the county." "He's right," Dale said, "though don't tell him I agreed with him." Claire laughed, a real laugh, short and genuine. Conrad, standing near the door, looked at the floor and swallowed. Dale drove home through the dark Kansas night on I-135 North, the radio on low, the flat landscape invisible beyond his headlights but present nonetheless. He could feel it, the way you feel a wall in a dark room. Miles of it on either side, patient and enormous and indifferent to human troubles. He was an hour from home when his phone rang. He answered it through the truck's Bluetooth. "Dad." Kevin's voice had an edge to it. "I need you to come by the office when you get back. I found something." "What kind of something?" "The kind you need to see in person." "How far out are you?" "Hour. I'll wait up." Dale arrived at the farm just after 11 p.m. Kevin was in the small farm office off the barn, a converted tack room with a desk, 2 filing cabinets, and a computer that was 3 years old and ran slowly. He was sitting in front of it when Dale came in, and he turned the monitor so Dale could see. "I've been looking into the Dawson land sale," Kevin said, "just out of curiosity. So I pulled the county property records, and then I pulled the records on the parcels adjacent to the Dawson section." Dale looked at the screen. It showed a county land map, parcels outlined in different colors. "This is us," Kevin said, pointing. "This is Ashby, north. This is the Dawson section, southeast." He moved his finger. "And this is the parcel directly between the Dawson land and the southeast corner of our property." Dale leaned in. The parcel was relatively small, maybe 80 acres. "Who owns it?" he asked. Kevin looked at his father. "You do," he said. "Or rather, according to these records, Edwin Merritt purchased it in 1953, and it was never transferred out of the estate. It's been sitting in the property records under the original deed this whole time. Dad, this parcel was never included in any of the land divisions when Grandpa Roy settled Grandpa Edwin's estate." Dale straightened up slowly. "Are you telling me," he said carefully, "that we own 80 acres we didn't know about?" "I'm telling you there's an 80-acre parcel with a 1953 deed in Edwin Merritt's name that has never been legally transferred." which means according to Kansas inheritance law, it would have passed to Grandpa Roy, and from Roy to you. Kevin paused. I'm also telling you that this parcel is directly in the path of the solar development company that's been quietly buying up land in this area. Dale sat down heavily in the spare chair. How did this not come up before, he said. Because nobody looked. It's been lying fallow for decades. No buildings on it, no active agriculture. It's basically just land. But Dad, Kevin turned back to the monitor and pulled up another document. I looked up the going rate for solar easements in this county. Per acre, for a 20-year easement. He pointed to a number on the screen. Dale looked at the number for a long time. Then he looked at his son. Don't get ahead of yourself, Dale said. We don't know that deed is clean. We don't know there aren't other claims. We need a lawyer to look at this before we start counting anything. I know, Kevin said. But if it's clean, Dale said, then a lot of things change. He drove to the farmhouse slowly, past the barn where his seed bags now sat empty, past the east field where his wheat was beginning its quiet work underground. The sky above was clear and full of stars, the Milky Way visible in a broad sweep from south to north. He stood on the porch for a while before going in. 30 days, he'd told Kevin. He was 21 days in. The letter arrived on a Tuesday, 31 days after Dale had loaded Conrad Ashby's seed bags into his truck. It came in a standard white envelope with a federal return address, the USDA Farm Service, Agency Regional Office in Wichita, and it was mixed in with the usual assortment of bills, seed catalogs, and a circular from a Dodge City equipment dealer. Sandra had brought the mail in and set it on the kitchen counter before leaving for her part-time job at the school district office in Greensburg. So Dale found the letter alone at 9 a.m. holding a cup of coffee he'd been planning to take out to the field. He set the coffee down. He opened the envelope standing at the kitchen counter. He read the letter once quickly, then a second time slowly. Then he sat down at the table and read it a third time. The FSA emergency drought relief application he'd filed in June had been reviewed. Due to a new federal appropriation passed in September targeting multi-year drought-affected operations in the Southern Plains, his application had been reconsidered under expanded criteria. He had been approved for an emergency operating loan of $187,000 at 2.75% annual interest, with a 36-month repayment schedule beginning after the following harvest season. $187,000. He put the letter on the table and looked at it. He thought about the balloon payment on the equipment loan, which was $94,000. He thought about the operating costs through winter, fuel, utilities, Martinez's wages, insurance. He thought about the property tax bill due in December. He thought about Kevin's face when he'd said $62,000 a year plus benefits. He did the arithmetic in his head for the 100th time, except this time the numbers came out differently. This time with $187,000 and the potential still unconfirmed, still conditional, of the undiscovered parcel, the numbers produced a result he hadn't seen in 3 years. Something that looked like a path forward. He called Sandra first. She answered on the second ring, and when he told her, she was quiet for a moment. And then he heard something in her breathing that told him she was crying, though when she spoke, her voice was level. "Dale," she said. "Yeah, okay. A pause. "Come in for dinner tonight, I'll make something good." He called Kevin next. His son's response was characteristically measured. "That's good, Dad, that's really good." But Dale could hear the relief underneath it, young and unguarded. "The Cargill offer," Dale said. "What about it? Is it still there?" Kevin was quiet for a moment. "Yes, they extended the deadline. I asked them to. What do you want to do?" Another pause, longer this time. Dale listened to the wind moving through the phone connection, the faint sound of Kevin's truck on a county road. "I want to know if the parcel is real first," Kevin said, "before I decide anything." "Fair enough. I'm calling Richard Stovall this afternoon." Stovall was the agricultural property attorney in Dodge City who had handled the Merit land transactions for 2 decades. "Call me after," Kevin said. Richard Stovall was a compact man of 60 with reading glasses he wore pushed up on his forehead, and a manner so deliberate it could be mistaken for slowness by people who didn't know him. He'd been handling property law in southwest Kansas for 35 years, and he had a way of parsing a situation that reminded Dale of a man diffusing something delicate. No wasted movement, no unnecessary drama. He came out to the farm 3 days after Dale's call, carrying a leather document case and wearing dress shoes that were entirely wrong for the gravel driveway. He walked through the office with Dale and Kevin, spread the relevant documents on the desk, and examined them for 45 minutes without speaking, except to occasionally murmur something to himself. When he was done, he removed his reading glasses from his forehead, polished them with a cloth from his pocket, and put them on properly. "The 1953 deed is valid," he said. "Edwin Arthur Merritt, grantor, identified as purchasing party, full consideration paid. Properly filed with Ford County at the time." The parcel was never included in the 1967 estate settlement because it wasn't mentioned in Edwin's will, which wasn't unusual for the time, particularly for parcels that had been acquired as speculation or boundary extensions rather than active farm units. "Can it be challenged?" Kevin asked. "By whom?" Edwin had one heir, Roy. Roy had one heir, Dale. There are no competing claims filed against the parcel. "I'll need to run a full title search to confirm there are no liens or encumbrances I'm not seeing. But, on the face of what I'm looking at, Dale, this land is yours." Stovall looked up from the documents. "Has been for some time, technically speaking." Dale was quiet for a moment. "What's the process to formalize it?" "Quiet title action. I file the petition. We give proper notice. The court reviews and issues an order confirming title. In a case this clean, we're looking at 60 to 90 days, barring anything unexpected in the title search." Kevin leaned forward. "And in terms of the solar easement possibility, Kevin?" Dale's voice was quiet. "Dad, we need to look at every option, I know. But let's get the title confirmed before we start having those conversations." Stovall looked from son to father with the patient expression of a man accustomed to being present when families navigated important decisions. "He's right on both counts," Stovall said. "It's a real option worth exploring. It's also not a conversation to have before the title is clean." He gathered his documents. "I'll begin the title search this week. You should know within 10 days if there are any complications." After Stovall left, Dale and Kevin stood in the office for a while without speaking. The computer screen showed the county land map, the undiscovered parcel outlined in the particular color of something that had always been there, waiting to be seen. "What would you do with it?" Kevin asked, "if you had the choice?" "Solar easement, lease it for grazing, try to farm it." "I don't know yet," Dale said honestly, "but you're going to keep the farm." It wasn't quite a question. Dale looked at his son, at the dark eyes, the Edwin Merritt jaw, the restlessness that had always lived just beneath the surface. "I'm going to keep the farm," Dale said. "What you do is your decision." Kevin nodded. He picked up his jacket from the spare chair. "I'm going to take a drive. I'll be back for dinner." He left, and Dale heard his truck on the gravel, then the sound of it fading north on the county road. That evening, Dale drove north to the Ashby property. He found Conrad in his equipment shed working on a header for the combined routine autumn maintenance, the kind of methodical work that farmers did with their hands when their minds needed something neutral to rest against. Conrad looked up when Dale's headlights swept the shed entrance, and there was a brief moment of the old wariness before something in his face relaxed. "Conrad, how's Claire?" "Second round is done. She's home for 2 weeks before the third. She's tired, but Conrad set down the wrench. "She's Claire. She doesn't complain." "Good." Dale stepped into the shed. The fluorescent lights overhead gave everything a flat, clear quality. "I got the FSA letter. Good news?" "Better than I expected." Dale told him the amount. Conrad's eyebrows moved slightly. "That'll get you through the winter," Conrad said. Yes, and the wheat looks good. I drove past your east field yesterday. Stand is establishing well. I know. I check it every morning. Dale paused. I also found out there's an 80-acre parcel that my grandfather bought in 1953 that's been sitting unclaimed in the county records. Attorney says it's mine. Conrad looked at him steadily. Where? Southeast. Between the Dawson section and my South 40. Something passed across Conrad's face. Calculation, and then, visibly, the decision to set the calculation aside. That's good land, he said. Well drained. I've driven past it 100 times and always wondered who owned it. So had I, apparently. Just never thought to ask. A brief silence. Somewhere in the dark outside, a coyote called once and went quiet. Conrad, Dale said. I want to talk to you about the Dawson section. Conrad leaned against the combine. Paul's selling to whoever's buying. I know. But if there was a farmer buyer, Dale, I don't have the capital to buy 480 acres right now. Claire's treatment is. He stopped. It's expensive, even with insurance. I'm not asking you to buy it. I'm asking if you'd be interested in a joint operation, a partnership. Dale said it carefully, the way you say something you've thought about for a long time, and are only now saying aloud for the first time. You have the equipment. I have the capital coming in from the FSA loan, and if the parcel goes to solar easement, that's additional cash flow. The Dawson land managed right, with your center pivot knowledge and my... He paused. With what both of us know, it could work. Conrad looked at him for a long time. You're talking about farming together, Conrad said. I'm talking about not watching that land go under solar panels because neither of us was willing to work with the other. Another long silence. The fluorescent lights hummed. The coyote called again in the distance. Lynette would say yes immediately, Conrad said. Sandra too, probably. Which means we've both been the problem, most likely. Conrad picked up the wrench from the workbench, turned it over in his hands, set it back down. Let me think about it, he said. A few days, take the time you need. Dale drove home through the dark. The sky was enormous and cold, the stars very bright. The wheat in his east field was invisible in the darkness, but he knew it was there. 2 inches of green growth just beginning to establish itself, making the slow, steady claim that things make when they're growing in good ground. He was halfway home when his phone rang. He answered it. Mr. Merritt? The voice was unfamiliar, professional, careful. This is Agent Daniel Forsyth with the USDA Office of Inspector General. I'm sorry to call at this hour. I'm hoping you can help me with an investigation we're currently running. It involves your neighbor, Conrad Ashby, and a federal subsidy fraud case that goes back approximately 12 years. Dale pulled the truck to the side of the road. He turned off the radio. Tell me what you need, he said. He didn't sleep that night. He lay in the dark beside Sandra, listening to the familiar sounds of the farmhouse, the creak of the walls contracting in the cold, the hum of the refrigerator, the distant whisper of wind across the fields, and turned the conversation with Agent Forsyth over and over in his mind, examining it from different angles the way you examine a piece of equipment you're not sure you understand yet. What Forsyth had told him was this: a federal investigation into fraudulent crop insurance claims in southwestern Kansas had been running for 14 months. Several farmers in a 3-county area had been identified as having filed systematically inflated loss claims over a period of years, reporting drought, damage, and yield losses significantly beyond what satellite imagery and independent field surveys could support. The total fraudulent claims across all defendants ran to approximately $2.3 million in federal insurance payouts. Conrad Ashby's name was on the list. Specifically, according to Forsyth, Conrad had filed false loss claims in 6 of the past 12 years, claiming catastrophic losses in seasons where his actual yields, documented by field sensors installed as part of a university research partnership, Conrad wasn't aware was also transmitting data to the FSA, had been significantly better than reported. The estimated fraudulent benefit to Ashby was $340,000. Forsyth wanted to know if Dale had any direct knowledge, conversations, observations, anything that might corroborate or complicate the picture. He'd been careful to frame it as an information-gathering call, not an accusation, but the subtext was clear enough. Dale had told him honestly that he had no direct knowledge of any fraud. He had noted that he and Conrad Ashby had not had a close relationship for many years, and that his recent interactions with Conrad had been limited and cordial. He had said he would cooperate fully with any official inquiry. After he hung up, he had sat in his truck on the side of the county road for 20 minutes before driving home. Now, at 3 a.m., he stared at the ceiling and thought about Conrad in the hospital waiting room, the tired eyes, the paper coffee cup, the way he'd said Claire with a specific softness. He thought about the 6 bags of seed loaded into his truck. He thought about the proposition he'd made in the equipment shed not 6 hours ago. He thought about the word that kept surfacing, unwelcome and insistent, partnership. He thought about Sandra's voice on the phone that afternoon when he'd told her about the FSA loan. Okay. He thought about Kevin and the Cargill job and 30 days. He told Sandra in the morning. He had learned decades ago that withholding things from her didn't make them smaller. It only delayed the moment when she'd find out and justifiably wonder why he'd thought she couldn't handle it. She listened with her coffee mug held in both hands, sitting across the kitchen table from him. Her face was composed and careful. When he finished, she was quiet for a moment. "Do you believe it?" she said. "About Conrad?" "I don't know," Dale said honestly. The agent seemed confident. "The investigation has been running over a year. That kind of thing doesn't get to a phone call stage without documentation. But you don't know." "No." Sandra looked out the kitchen window at the fields. The morning light was coming in low and gold, the kind of light that made the bare winter wheat fields look painted. "The seed," she said quietly. "What about it? He gave you seed that he could have sold. When he knew, if he knew, that he had federal investigators looking at him. That's either a very guilty man trying to make something look good, or a man who genuinely," she stopped. "Or both," Dale said. "People aren't one thing." Sandra looked at him. "No," she said. "They're not." He told Kevin that morning in the farm office before Martinez arrived for the day's work. Kevin received the information the way he received most difficult things, in silence, processing it behind his eyes. "The partnership conversation," Kevin said finally. "I haven't talked to Conrad since Forsyth called. The conversation we had last night." Dale shook his head. "I don't know where that stands now, Dad." Kevin leaned forward. "If Conrad is under federal investigation for fraud, a partnership would be. I know what it would be. Any financial connection to him right now could, Kevin." Dale held up a hand. "I know. I understand the implications. I'm not asking your advice on that. I'm telling you what happened because you deserve to know." Kevin sat back. He looked at the land map still visible on the computer screen. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know yet. You always say that because it's usually true." Dale stood. "I'm going to go check the wheat." He walked the east field that morning in the pale autumn light, moving slowly along the rows, crouching occasionally to look at the small green shoots emerging from the soil, thin as threads, precise as intentions, utterly indifferent to the complications of the people who had planted them. The ground was moist from the recent rain, the soil dark and alive. A red-tailed hawk circled overhead riding a thermal, watching the field with the patient attention of something that understood it had time. He thought about his grandfather Edwin breaking this same ground 90 years ago. Edwin Merritt had not been a sentimental man. By family account, practical, stubborn, capable of silence for days at a time. He had bought this land during the Depression because he'd had the cash and the foresight and the deep irrational certainty that the land would outlast whatever was happening to the country. He had been right. He thought about Roy Merritt, who had made mistakes and recovered from them and made more mistakes, as people do, and had still managed to hand the land to his son intact. He thought about what he would hand to Kevin. A farm was not a monument. It was not a legacy in the abstract sense. It was a specific collection of decisions made and unmade and made again in specific weather, with specific equipment, against specific odds. The meaning of it was inseparable from the difficulty of it. A farm that had never almost failed was not the same thing as a farm that had. He walked back to the barn as Martinez was arriving, and they spent the morning checking the irrigation system for winter readiness, working in companionable near silence, the work going forward the way it always did, regardless of what else was happening. Conrad called that afternoon. Dale was in the barn when his phone rang. He looked at the screen, saw the name, and let it ring once more before answering. Dale. Conrad's voice was different from the previous night, quieter, slower, like a man who had spent the night doing the same math Dale had been doing. I need to talk to you, all right? Not on the phone. Can you come up? A pause. When? Now if you can. Dale drove north. The Ashby driveway looked the same as it always did. Gravel, the two-story house, the border collie coming off the porch. But everything felt different in the way that places feel different when you know something about them you didn't know before. Conrad was on the porch when Dale pulled in. He didn't go inside this time. He stayed on the porch, and Dale came up the steps, and they stood at the railing looking out at the fields. Someone called you, Conrad said. It wasn't a question. Dale looked at him. Yes, federal investigator. Yes. Conrad put his hands on the railing. He looked out at his fields for a long moment. The center pivot system was visible in the distance, standing still and angular against the sky. I'm going to tell you the truth, Conrad said. I should have told it a long time ago, but I'm going to tell it now. He paused. In 2011, I had a catastrophic year, worse than what I told anyone. I was about to lose the north section. The bank was 3 weeks from filing. I had a conversation with an insurance adjuster who told me there were ways to represent losses that were more aggressive than the actual numbers without it being obvious to the auditors. I knew it was fraud. I did it anyway. Dale said nothing. I told myself it was a one-time thing, Conrad said. Then the farm stabilized and I stopped. Then in 2014 there was another bad year and He stopped. I did it again, and then again. Not every year. Not even most years, but enough times over enough seasons that apparently it accumulated to the point where someone started looking. He turned and looked at Dale directly. The pale blue eyes were tired in a way that had moved past what the situation with Claire had put there. This was a deeper tiredness, the kind that comes from carrying something for a long time. I don't know what they told you, Conrad said, and I don't know what you're going to do with what I'm telling you. But you gave me something the other night when you came to the hospital. You gave me... He stopped again. You treated me like someone worth treating decently, and I owe you the truth. Dale stood at the railing for a long time without speaking. Below them, the border collie had settled in the dry grass of the yard, watching them with the patient attention of a dog that has learned that when humans stand still for a long time, it's worth waiting out. What are you going to do? Dale asked. I talked to a lawyer this morning. I'm going to cooperate with the investigation. Full cooperation. Whatever that means for what comes next, the penalties, the repayment, potentially worse, I'm going to deal with it. Conrad's voice was even, resolved. I'm not going to put Claire through watching me fight something I know I did. She'll find out regardless, and I'd rather she'll find out that her father faced it than that he ran from it. Dale turned and looked at him. The partnership, Dale said. That's not going to be possible now. Conrad said it without self-pity, a flat statement of fact. Whatever comes out of the investigation, financial penalties, possible prosecution, I'm not going to drag you into the middle of that. The offer meant something to me. More than you probably realize, but it can't happen. Silence stretched between them, filled with wind, and the distant sound of a truck on the county road. "The seed," Dale said. "Keep it. That was a gift, clean and clear, and it's not connected to any of this." "Conrad Dale." Conrad's voice was firm. "Take the harvest. Get your son to stay. Don't let this land go anywhere." He paused. "I hope my land stays in farming too, whatever happens to it. I hope someone who knows what they're doing with it ends up with it. But that's not up to me anymore." Dale drove home slowly. He drove past the east field where the wheat was growing. He drove past the barn where the empty seed bags still sat, folded neatly in the corner. He parked in the gravel driveway and sat in the truck for a while. Then he went inside and told Sandra everything. She listened to all of it, the investigation, the conversation on the porch, what Conrad had said. When Dale finished, she was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "He gave you the seed anyway?" "Yes." Knowing all of this was coming, "I think so, yes." Sandra looked at the table. "That's not nothing." "No," Dale said. "It's not." The title was confirmed clean on a Wednesday morning in early November. Richard Stovall called Dale at 8 a.m. with the measured satisfaction of a man who had expected good news and received it. The full title search had found no liens, no competing claims, no encumbrances of any kind on the 80-acre parcel. The quiet title action had been filed and reviewed. The court order confirming Dale Merritt as the legal owner would be issued within the week. Dale was standing in the east field when the call came, watching the winter wheat. In the 6 weeks since planting, it had established a stand that made him almost superstitious about looking at it too long, green and even and precise. The rows running south to north in perfect parallel, the kind of stand that old farmers described as clean. The fall moisture had come in almost exactly as the extended forecast had suggested, and the soil had done what good Kansas soil does when given water and time and decent seed. He thanked Stovall, hung up, and stood in the field for another few minutes. The parcel, once formalized, would give him options. He had spent the past 3 weeks thinking carefully about those options, the solar easement route, which would generate significant cash flow, but felt, each time he turned it over in his mind, like a kind of surrender he wasn't ready for, and the alternative, which he'd discussed with Kevin in a series of conversations that had been careful and honest in the way their conversations had been learning to be. The alternative was simpler: farm it, with the FSA loan covering the immediate debt crisis, with the balloon payment satisfied and operating costs funded through the following harvest. The farm was no longer in acute distress. It was still fragile. One more bad drought year, one significant equipment failure, one unexpected crisis could tip things again. But fragile was different from failing. Dale had been farming fragile land his whole life. He knew how to do that. The 80 acres planted to wheat in the following autumn would increase his total operation by 30%. With Kevin, if Kevin stayed, that scale was manageable. Without Kevin, it was ambitious. Dale had decided to present the math honestly and let his son decide. Kevin came to dinner that Sunday with a bottle of wine he'd brought from Wichita, something he'd never done before, a small gesture that Sandra noticed and that Dale filed away without comment. They ate dinner at the kitchen table, the three of them, with the autumn dark outside the windows and the furnace running for the first time since spring. Sandra had made pot roast again, the same as the evening Kevin had mentioned the Cargill job, which may or may not have been intentional. After dinner, over coffee, Kevin laid a folder on the table. "I declined the Cargill offer," he said. Dale looked at the folder, then at his son. "Kevin," Sandra started, "it wasn't a hard decision. I thought it was going to be harder than it was." Kevin opened the folder. Inside was a document, pages of dense type with a cover sheet that read, "Merritt Agricultural Partnership, LLC Operating Agreement Draft." I had an attorney draw this up. "It's a legal restructuring of the farm as a limited liability company, with you and me as equal partners. It changes how the property is held, how income and liability are structured, and it creates a cleaner path for succession planning. He looked at his father. I'm not trying to take over. I'm trying to make it so that if something happens to you, to the farm, to the market, we're structured to survive it instead of scrambling. Dale picked up the draft agreement and looked at the first page, then the second, then he set it down. You had this drawn up before you declined Cargill, Dale said. Yes, so you'd already decided. Kevin was quiet for a moment. I decided the night you told me about the seed. About going to Ashby. He looked at the table. I don't know how to explain that exactly. It wasn't the economics of it. It was. He stopped, then tried again. You did the hardest thing. You went to the person it was hardest to go to, and you asked for help, and then you helped him back. And I thought, he looked up. I want to be part of something that does that. I don't want to sell agricultural products for a corporation. I want to farm. The kitchen was very quiet. The furnace hummed. Outside, the wind moved through the bare trees at the edge of the property. Sandra was looking at the table. Dale could tell by her breathing that she was doing the same thing she'd done on the phone, holding something level that didn't want to stay level. Dale picked up the operating agreement again. I'll have Stovall look at it. I assumed you would. And I'm not signing anything that gives you equal say on the seed variety decisions. That's non-negotiable. Kevin blinked. Then he laughed, a surprised, real laugh that Dale hadn't heard from his son in what felt like years. That's what you're negotiating on, seed variety? It matters, Dale said, and the corner of his mouth moved. The federal investigation into Conrad Ashby concluded in the following spring, resulting in a civil settlement, full repayment of the fraudulent claims plus penalties, totaling $512,000 to be paid over 7 years. No criminal charges were filed, in part because of Conrad's full and documented cooperation throughout the investigation. The settlement required the liquidation of a significant portion of Conrad's equipment and the restructuring of his outstanding debt. Dale learned the details through Gus Palmetto, who learned them through the network of small county information that moved like groundwater, invisible, pervasive, and impossible to stop. He did not call Conrad when the settlement was announced. But 2 weeks later, he drove north on the county road and up the Ashby driveway, and found Conrad in his equipment shed again, doing the same kind of methodical maintenance work that had occupied his hands during hard things before. Claire's in remission, Conrad said before Dale could speak. He said it the way people say things they've needed to say for a long time, not dramatically, but with a careful steadiness, as if the words were fragile and he was carrying them gently. Dale stopped walking. Full remission, he said. As of last week, doctor says the response has been, they use the word exceptional. She starts a monitoring protocol, but no further treatment scheduled. Conrad set down the wrench he was holding. She's coming home in 10 days. Dale crossed the shed and shook Conrad's hand. Conrad gripped it hard, the grip of a man who had been holding himself together for a long time and was only now, incrementally, allowing himself to let some of the tension go. That's the best news I've heard in a year, Dale said. Best I've heard in my life, Conrad said quietly. They stood in the shed together for a moment, not needing to fill the space with words. Outside, the border collie lay in a patch of afternoon sun, one eye open, watching the entrance with the lazy vigilance of a dog who knows the important things are already accounted for. The north section, Conrad said eventually. I'm going to have to sell it, part of the settlement arrangement. I wanted you to know before it went to a broker. Dale looked at him. What are you asking? I'm not asking anything. I'm telling you first, before anyone else. Conrad's pale blue eyes held something that was not quite an offer, not quite a plea, something in between. The expression of a man who has learned the hard way that pride is a luxury and that telling the truth early is cheaper than telling it late. What you do with that information is your business. Dale was quiet for a long time. He thought about Kevin and the LLC operating agreement now signed and filed with the county. He thought about the FSA loan, the Eastfield wheat stand, the 80-acre parcel now formally in the Merritt name. He thought about the arithmetic, the real arithmetic, the kind that included not just dollars and acres, but what it meant to keep agricultural land in agricultural use, what it meant to his grandfather Edwin, who had bought ground during the Depression because he believed in it, what it meant to the county and the community, and the long, slow story of this place. He thought about Conrad in the hospital waiting room, the paper coffee cup, the tired eyes. "How many acres in the north section?" Dale said. 160. Dale nodded slowly. "Let me talk to Kevin." The conversation with Kevin happened that evening in the farm office, the land map visible on the screen between them. Dale presented the numbers honestly, what they could carry, what they couldn't, what the risk profile looked like against the potential of a 160-acre addition to the operation in the year following a strong harvest. Kevin listened without interrupting, his elbows on the desk, his eyes moving between his father's face and the map on the screen. When Dale finished, Kevin was quiet for a moment. "You want to do it," Kevin said. "I'm presenting the information, Dad." Kevin looked at him with the direct, patient expression of someone who has spent his whole life learning to read a particular face. "You want to do it." Dale looked at the map. The Ashby North section sat directly adjacent to the parcel his grandfather had bought in 1953, the one that had sat undiscovered in the county records for 70 years, waiting. If the Merritt farm acquired it, the resulting combined acreage would create one of the larger continuous farming operations in the county. Not the largest, but substantial. Enough to justify the scale of equipment investment they'd been stretching to support on their current acreage. Enough to make the economics of the operation genuinely robust rather than perpetually fragile. "It depends on the price," Dale said, "and on financing. The FSA has an expansion loan program for established operators with clean repayment history. Our history is clean. The drought relief loan is current." Kevin leaned back in his chair. He looked at the ceiling for a moment, at the low ceiling of the converted tack room that had been the farm office for 20 years, with its one fluorescent light and its smell of old paper and engine oil. "You know what this means," Kevin said. "If we do this, what we're committing to." "Yes. This isn't a 30-day proposition. This is the rest of your life and a significant part of mine. I know that." Kevin looked at his father. "And you're asking me?" "I'm telling you what I want to do. Then I'm asking." A pause. Outside, the wind picked up, and they could hear it moving through the wheat. The Eastfield wheat, now well established and beginning its winter dormancy, the green standing down into stillness to wait for spring. It was a sound Dale had heard 10,000 times in his life, and he heard it differently now with Kevin in the chair across from him, with the map on the screen, with all the arithmetic of the past months finally resolving into something that looked, for the first time in years, like an actual future. "I'm in," Kevin said. The offer on Conrad's north section was submitted in March, through Stovall, at a price that was fair to both sides. Not a charity price, and not a hardship price. The kind of number that acknowledged value honestly. Conrad accepted within 48 hours. The closing happened on a Thursday in April in Stovall's Dodge City office, with Dale and Kevin on one side of the conference table, and Conrad on the other, with their respective attorneys and the title company representative completing the formalities. It was a quiet, businesslike proceeding. The signatures were gathered, the documents exchanged, the handshakes offered. At the end, as they were filing out into the parking lot, Conrad stopped beside Dale at his truck. "Take care of it," Conrad said. He meant the land, the north section, the 160 acres his family had farmed for 3 decades. "I will," Dale said. Conrad nodded. He looked older than he had the previous fall, leaner. The face more angular, but there was something lighter in him too. The way people sometimes look after they've put down something heavy they'd been carrying so long they'd forgotten it wasn't part of them. Claire wants to visit the farm sometime, Conrad said. When she's stronger. She's been reading about regenerative agriculture, cover crops, no-till practices. She had a lot of time in the hospital to read. A slight, careful smile. She's been talking about getting her agronomist certification. Dale looked at him. Tell her she's welcome anytime. I'll tell her. They drove out of the parking lot in opposite directions, Conrad south toward what remained of his operation, Dale and Kevin north toward home. Kevin was in the passenger seat, the signed closing documents in a folder on his lap. He was looking out the window at the flat Kansas landscape passing at highway speed, the fields coming into their spring green, the wheat visible in rows from the road. How do you feel? Kevin asked. Dale thought about it. Like something that's been going wrong for a long time just started going right, he said. Kevin nodded. He kept looking out the window. Grandpa Edwin, Kevin said after a while. He never knew about the parcel, the 80 acres. No, he bought it and filed it and moved on to the next thing. That's how he was. And it just sat there. All those years. All those years. Kevin was quiet for a moment. Funny how the things that save you are sometimes already yours, he said. You just haven't found them yet. Dale looked at the road ahead, the straight flat highway north, the sky enormous and pale blue above it, the fields running away on both sides to the horizon. The same sky he'd been reading every morning for years. The same land that had been in his family for nearly a century. The same road his father had driven and his grandfather before that. Yeah, he said, that's about right. The harvest that June was the strongest the Merritt farm had produced in 7 years. The winter wheat came off the east field and the south 40 at yields that made Roberto Martinez laugh out loud when he saw the first numbers from the combine. Not a big laugh, but the specific, satisfied laugh of a man who has done good work and seen it confirmed. He texted his wife from the cab of the tractor during a brief stop, and she sent back 3 emojis that he showed to Kevin without comment. Dale walked the harvested rows after the combines had passed, the way he'd watched his father do after every harvest and his grandfather before that. The stubble was dry and golden, the soil beneath it dark and spent in the good way, the way of a field that had given what it had and would be ready to give again. The sky above was the same indifferent blue it had been all summer, but it read differently now. Not a lie, just the sky, doing what skies do. He pulled out his phone and looked at the running yield totals Kevin was updating in real time from the combine's data system. He looked at them for a long time. Then he put his phone in his pocket and stood in the harvested field and looked north, toward the Ashby North section, the Merritt North section now, which would be planted to wheat in the fall. Its soil already being prepared, its future already being planned in the quiet, methodical way that farming plans get made, one season at a time, one decision at a time, one bag of seed at a time. He thought about the morning he'd driven up Conrad's driveway with nothing but the specific weight of having run out of other options. He thought about sitting at that kitchen table. He thought about loading 6 bags of seed into the back of his truck and driving home through weather that was finally, after years of patience, beginning to change. A man gives away his last resource and calls it loss. 30 days later, the sky delivers rain. A letter arrives from a federal office. A deed surfaces from 1953, and a son decides to stay. None of it was miraculous. All of it was cause and effect. The long, slow, invisible chain of consequences that connects a decision made in good faith to an outcome that couldn't be predicted, but somehow, in retrospect, seems like the only outcome that made sense. The farm would face hard years again. Dale knew this with the certainty of a man who had read enough Kansas's skies to understand that the horizon was always provisional. There would be droughts, equipment failures, market crashes, the particular cruelties that weather and biology and economics reserve for people who work the land. There would be arguments with Kevin about seed variety and planting dates, and the proper way to maintain the combine header. There would be nights when the arithmetic came out wrong and sleep didn't come easy, but the land was his. And now it was also Kevin's, and the wheat in the ground was Merritt wheat in Merritt soil, working its slow, invisible way toward the surface the way things do when they're in the right place, given enough time and the basic conditions for growth. He turned and walked back toward the barn. Roberto was bringing the combine around for another pass on the South 40. Kevin was on the radio with the co-op, negotiating the delivery schedule. Sandra had brought lunch out to the field in the cooler she'd been using for 30 summers, and it was sitting in the shade of Dale's truck, waiting. Dale walked toward it. Above him, the Kansas sky stretched wide and patient and enormous in every direction. The same sky his grandfather had looked up at in 1931 with a mule and a hand plow, and the irrational certainty that the ground beneath his feet was worth everything he had. It still was.